Donald Trump just promised to fix the economy. And I actually believe he wants to. But there's a problem. The crash coming in 2026 is bigger than any president. It's mathematical, it's unstoppable, and I need to show you why. Look, this isn't a political video. I don't care if you love Trump or hate him. That's irrelevant to what I'm about to show you. Because what's coming transcends politics. It transcends parties. It transcends any individual leader, no matter how powerful or well-intentioned they might be. The economic crash that's building right now, the one that's going to hit in 2026, it was set in motion decades ago, long before Trump, long before Biden, long before any of the current players were even in the game. This is the result of 50 years of bad decisions, compounding errors, and mathematical inevitabilities that no president can reverse. Let me start by being clear about something. Trump isn't stupid. He's not ignorant about economics. Say what you want about his policies or his personality, but the man understands business. He understands debt. He understands leverage. He knows how money works. And I genuinely believe that he wants to fix the economy. I think he looks at the problems we're facing and honestly believes he can solve them. He's a builder. He's a deal maker. He's someone who's spent his entire life fixing problems and making things work. But here's the brutal truth. Some problems are too big to fix. Some situations are too far gone. Some mathematical realities don't care about willpower or deal-making skills or presidential authority. And the economic crisis we're facing is one of those situations. Let me break down exactly why Trump, or any president, cannot stop what's coming. Reason number one, the debt is too large. The United States has $36 trillion in national debt right now. Let that number sink in, 36 trillion. That's more than our entire GDP. We owe more than we produce in a year. And it's growing by $2 trillion every year. Every single year we add another $2 trillion to the pile. Under Trump's first term, the debt grew by $8 trillion. Under Biden, it grew by another $7 trillion. It doesn't matter who's in office, the debt keeps growing. Now, Trump could theoretically try to cut spending. He could slash government programs, he could fire federal workers, he could try to balance the budget. But here's the problem. The math doesn't work anymore. Interest on the debt is now over $1 trillion per year. Just the interest. Not paying down the principal. Just the cost of servicing the debt we already have. That's more than we spend on defense. More than we spend on most government programs. Social Security costs about $1.4 trillion per year. Medicare costs about $1 trillion. Defense spending is about $850 billion. These three items alone are over $3 trillion. Add in the $1 trillion of interest, and you're at $4 trillion in spending. That is essentially untouchable. Our total federal revenue is about $4.5 trillion per year. You see the problem? Almost all of our revenue goes to just four things: interest, Social Security, Medicare, and defense. There's barely anything left for everything else. Roads, education, veterans benefits, everything else the government does. So if Trump wants to actually reduce the deficit, he would need to cut Social Security, Medicare, or defense. But he can't. Politically, it's impossible. Cut Social Security, and you anger 70 million retirees who vote. Cut Medicare, and you lose senior citizens. Cut defense, and you're accused of weakening America. So the debt keeps growing. And as it grows, the interest payments grow. And as interest payments grow, they consume more of the budget. It's a death spiral. And no president can stop it without making cuts that would be political suicide and social catastrophe. Reason number two, the Federal Reserve is trapped. Trump doesn't control the Fed. The Fed is technically independent, but even if he did control it, it wouldn't matter, because the Fed is in an impossible situation. If the Fed raises interest rates to fight inflation, they crash the economy. Higher rates mean higher mortgage payments. Businesses can't afford loans. The stock market tanks. Real estate collapses. Unemployment spikes. We go into a severe recession or depression. But if the Fed keeps rates low to support the economy, inflation continues. The dollar loses value. Prices keep rising. People can't afford basic necessities. And eventually, inflation gets so bad that it forces a crisis anyway. The Fed is stuck between two terrible options. Crash now with high rates, or crash later with inflation. Either way, we crash. Trump can't change this. No president can. The Fed painted itself into a corner over the past 15 years of money printing and zero interest rates. And now, there's no way out. Reason number three, the demographics are fixed. This is the big one that nobody talks about. The baby boomers are retiring. 10,000 people turn 65 every single day. That's 3.6 million new retirees every year. And they're all expecting Social Security. They're all going to use Medicare. They all need support. But the generation behind them is smaller. We're not producing enough workers to support the retirees. In 1950, there were 16 workers for every retiree. Today, it's 2.8 workers per retiree. By 2030, it'll be barely 2 workers per retiree. This is a mathematical problem. You can't change demographics with policy. You can't create workers out of thin air. The birth rate has been declining for decades. The population pyramid is inverting. And there's nothing Trump or any president can do about it. Even if Trump wanted to increase immigration to bring in more workers, that's politically toxic. His base would revolt. And even if he did it, it would take decades for those immigrants to fully integrate into the workforce and start paying significant taxes. The demographic crisis is locked in. It's happening. And it's going to bankrupt Social Security and Medicare, regardless of who's in the White House. Reason number 4, the global de-dollarization is already in motion. The dollar's status as the world's reserve currency is what allows us to print money and run massive deficits without immediate consequences. Other countries need dollars, so they buy our debt and accept our currency. But that's ending. China, Russia, and the BRICS nations are building an alternative system. They're trading in their own currencies. They're accumulating gold. They're creating payment systems that bypass the dollar entirely. Saudi Arabia is accepting yuan for oil. That's huge. The petrodollar system was the foundation of dollar dominance. When the Saudis accept other currencies, the whole system starts to crack. Trump can't stop this. He can't force China to use dollars. He can't make Saudi Arabia only accept dollars. He can't prevent other countries from building alternative systems. This is a global movement driven by countries that are tired of dollar hegemony and American financial weaponization. The process is already too far along. Even if Trump wanted to reverse it, even if he offered concessions and made deals, the momentum is unstoppable. Other countries have made their decision. They're moving away from the dollar, and when reserve currency status is lost, it doesn't come back. Reason number 5, the commercial real estate collapse is unstoppable. This is already happening right now. Office buildings are empty because of remote work. Retail spaces are vacant because of e-commerce. Property values are cratering. And there's $1.5 trillion in commercial real estate debt coming due over the next 2 years. These loans were made when interest rates were near zero and buildings were full. Now rates are triple what they were, and occupancy is half. Property owners can't refinance. They can't make the payments. They're going to default. And when they default, the regional banks holding these loans are going to fail. We're talking about potentially hundreds of bank failures. Another 2008-style crisis, but concentrated in commercial real estate and regional banks. He could maybe delay it slightly with some kind of bailout or loan program. But that just kicks the can and makes the problem bigger. The fundamental issue is that the buildings aren't worth what they were. The loans can't be repaid. The losses have to be recognized. Someone has to eat the losses. And when that happens, banks fail and the financial system seizes up. Reason number 6, the money printing can't stop. This is the core issue. The government is spending $2 trillion more than it collects every year. That gap has to be filled somehow. And the only way to fill it is for the Federal Reserve to create money and buy government debt. They call it quantitative easing or monetary accommodation or whatever technical term sounds legitimate. But it's just printing money, creating dollars out of nothing to fund government spending. And this printing causes inflation. More dollars chasing the same goods and services means prices go up. Your purchasing power declines. Your savings lose value. Trump knows this. He's criticized the Fed for printing money before. But here's his problem. If the Fed stops printing, the government can't fund itself. We'd have to either massively cut spending or massively raise taxes. Both options are political poison. Cut spending and millions of people lose benefits, programs get eliminated, government services disappear. Raise taxes and you crush the economy, destroy growth, and lose elections. So the printing continues, under Trump, under Biden, under whoever comes next. The printing continues because there's no politically viable alternative. And as the printing continues, inflation continues, and the dollar's value continues to erode. Trump can't stop this without making choices that would destroy his presidency and potentially cause a depression. So he won't stop it. He'll do what every president does. Keep the system going, keep printing, and hope the crisis doesn't happen on his watch. Reason number 7, the derivatives market is a ticking time bomb. There are over $600 trillion in derivatives in the global financial system. That's 6 times the size of the entire world economy. These are complex financial instruments that most people don't understand. But here's what matters. They're all interconnected. They're all based on assumptions about interest rates, currency values, and asset prices. And when those assumptions break, the whole system can collapse. We saw this in 2008 with mortgage-backed securities. When housing prices started falling, all the derivatives based on mortgages started failing. And because everything was connected, the failure spread through the entire system. Banks that weren't even in the mortgage business were failing because of counterparty risk in the derivatives market. The same thing can happen again. Actually, it will happen again. Because the derivatives market is even bigger now than it was in 2008. And it's based on the assumption that interest rates stay low, the dollar stays strong, and asset prices keep rising. When those assumptions break, when the dollar loses reserve status, when interest rates spike, when asset prices collapse, the derivatives market will explode. Losses will cascade through the system. Banks will fail. The whole financial system could freeze up. Trump has no control over this. The derivatives market is global. It's mostly unregulated. It's in the shadows. There's no way for any president to prevent the crisis that's building there. Reason number 8. The trust is already broken. This is psychological but crucial. People around the world are losing faith in the dollar and the American system. They see us weaponizing the dollar with sanctions. They see us printing trillions. They see our political dysfunction. They see our declining infrastructure and social problems. The trust that underpinned dollar dominance is eroding, and once trust is lost, it's almost impossible to restore. Trump could try to rebuild trust. He could try to restore confidence. But actions speak louder than words. And our actions, our massive debt, our money printing, our political chaos, they all scream that the American system is in decline. Other countries are rationally preparing for a post-dollar world. They're not doing this because they hate America. They're doing it because they see the writing on the wall. They're protecting themselves. And once that process starts, it becomes self-fulfilling. The loss of reserve currency status happens gradually, then suddenly. We're in the gradual phase. The sudden phase is coming. And Trump can't stop it because the trust that would be required to reverse it simply doesn't exist anymore. Now, let me be fair to Trump. There are some things he could do that might help at the margins. He could potentially negotiate better trade deals. He could try to bring some manufacturing back to America. He could cut regulations to spur economic growth. He could try to reduce government waste and inefficiency. These things might help. They might make the crash slightly less severe or buy a few more months of time. But they won't prevent the crash. They're Band-Aids on a compound fracture. They're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. The fundamental problems are too big, too entrenched, and too far along to be fixed by any president in a 4-year term, or even an 8-year term. These problems took 50 years to build. They can't be solved in less than a decade, even under the best circumstances, with perfect policies and full political support. And Trump won't have perfect policies or full political support. He'll face opposition from Congress. He'll face resistance from the bureaucracy. He'll face attacks from the media. He'll face legal challenges. He'll face constraints from interest groups and lobbyists and everyone with something to lose from change. The system is designed to resist change. It's designed to protect the status quo. And the people benefiting from the current system, the Wall Street banks, the defense contractors, the government employees, the beneficiaries of every program and subsidy, they'll all fight to keep things as they are. Trump could be the most skilled, most determined, most effective president in history, and he still couldn't overcome the structural forces that are driving us toward crisis. So what does this mean for you? If Trump can't stop the crash, if no president can stop it, what are you supposed to do? First, understand that this isn't about Trump succeeding or failing. This isn't about politics. This is about mathematics and economics and historical patterns that are bigger than any individual. Your financial future doesn't depend on who's in the White House. It depends on your own preparation and decisions. Second, stop waiting for someone to save you. Stop hoping the government will fix things. Stop believing that if we just elect the right person, everything will be okay. It won't. The crisis is coming regardless of who's in charge. You need to save yourself. Third, use whatever time we have left to prepare. We probably have 12 to 24 months before things get really bad. That's not a lot of time, but it's enough to take action if you start now. Get out of dollars. Buy hard assets. Gold, silver, real estate, productive businesses. Things with intrinsic value that can't be inflated away. Reduce your debt, especially variable rate debt. When interest rates spike and the crisis hits, you don't want to be drowning in debt. Build multiple income streams. Don't depend entirely on one job or one source of income. Diversify how you make money, so if one stream dries up, you have others. Develop skills that will be valuable regardless of economic conditions. Learn practical things. Learn how to fix things, grow things, make things. Skills are wealth that can't be inflated away or confiscated. Build community and relationships. In times of crisis, having people you can rely on is invaluable. Strong networks are a form of wealth. Stay informed and flexible. The situation is evolving. What's true today might change tomorrow. Be ready to adapt your strategy as new information emerges. Fourth, understand the timeline. Based on everything I'm seeing, the critical period is 2026 to 2027. That's when multiple crises converge. The commercial real estate defaults. The Social Security Trust Fund runs dry. The BRICS alternative currency launches. The debt becomes truly unsustainable. The tipping point hits. Could it happen sooner? Yes. Could it be delayed slightly? Maybe. But the window is narrow. We're talking about 12 to 30 months before things get severe. Fifth, manage your expectations about Trump's presidency. He's going to face an impossible situation. The crash is probably going to happen on his watch. And he's going to get blamed for it, even though it wasn't his fault. The media will say Trump crashed the economy. His opponents will use it against him. People will be angry and looking for someone to blame. And Trump will be the convenient target. But the reality is that the crash was inevitable regardless of who won the election. Biden couldn't have prevented it. Harris couldn't have prevented it. Nobody could prevent it. The crisis was locked in years ago when we made the decisions to print trillions of dollars, rack up massive debt, offshore our manufacturing, and create a financial system dependent on perpetual growth that's no longer sustainable. Trump will try to manage the crisis when it hits. He'll probably push for more stimulus, more money printing, maybe even some kind of debt restructuring or currency reform. He'll do whatever he can to minimize the pain, but the pain is coming. It's unavoidable. The question is just how bad it gets and how long it lasts. Sixth, don't let political bias cloud your judgment. If you love Trump, don't convince yourself that he'll magically fix everything. He won't. If you hate Trump, don't convince yourself that he'll intentionally crash things. He won't. He'll try to help. This is bigger than Trump. This is bigger than politics. This is about economic reality. And economic reality doesn't care about your political preferences. Seventh, look at what's happening, not what people are saying. Politicians will tell you everything is fine. The Federal Reserve will say they have everything under control. The media will alternate between panic and reassurance depending on what gets clicks. Ignore all of it. Look at the actual data. Look at the debt numbers. Look at the inflation numbers. Look at what other countries are doing with their dollar reserves. Look at commercial real estate prices. Look at bank balance sheets. The data tells the real story. And the story is that we are heading for a major crisis that no amount of political spin can prevent. Eighth, understand that the crash will create opportunities. This isn't just doom and gloom. Yes, there will be pain. Yes, people will lose money. But crises also create chances for those who are prepared. When assets crash, you can buy them cheap. When others are panicking and selling, you can be buying. When the system resets, those positioned correctly can build significant wealth. The Great Depression made some people very rich. The 2008 crisis made some investors billions. Every crisis has winners and losers. You want to be a winner. That doesn't mean you're celebrating others' pain. It means you're being smart and taking advantage of opportunities when they arise. That's just prudent financial management. Ninth, prepare mentally and emotionally. The crash is going to be scary. People will panic. There will be anger and fear and uncertainty. So you need to be mentally prepared for that so you don't make emotional decisions. Have a plan now before the crisis. Decide what you'll do in various scenarios. Write it down. When the panic hits, follow your plan. Don't let fear drive your decisions. People who panic and sell at the bottom lose everything. People who stay calm and follow their strategy survive and thrive. 10th, take care of your health. Stress during financial crises can destroy your health, and medical problems during a crisis can destroy your finances. Do everything you can now to be healthy. Exercise, eat well, manage stress. Your health is your foundation. Now let me address what Trump might actually do when the crisis hits, because he will try to respond. And his response will matter even if it can't prevent the crisis. Trump will probably push for massive stimulus. He'll want to put money in people's pockets to ease the pain. He did this during COVID with the stimulus checks. He'll probably do it again during the next crisis. This will feel good in the short term. People will get checks. They'll be able to pay bills. But it will make inflation worse in the long term. More money printing means more currency devaluation. Trump will probably try to pressure the Federal Reserve to keep rates low. He's done this before. He wants cheap money to stimulate the economy. But low rates during inflation is gasoline on a fire. It makes the problem worse. Trump will probably try to renegotiate the debt, maybe offer bondholders partial payment, maybe restructure terms. This is what he did in his business career when companies had too much debt. But doing this at a national level would destroy U.S. credibility and crash the dollar. Trump will probably try to blame someone. China, the Federal Reserve, past administrations, Congress. He'll try to deflect responsibility and pin it on others. This is just politics. Don't get distracted by it. Trump might try to implement capital controls. Make it harder for money to leave the country. Restrict currency conversion. This is what governments do when their currency is in crisis. If he does this, it's a sign that things are really bad. Trump might try to push for a new currency system. Maybe a gold-backed dollar. Maybe some kind of digital currency. Maybe membership in a reformed international monetary system. This would be the most radical option, but might be necessary if the dollar completely collapses. The point is, Trump will try things. He's not going to just sit there and do nothing. He'll act. But his actions will be reactive, not preventative. He'll be managing a crisis, not preventing it. And some of his actions might make things worse in the long run, even if they feel good in the short run. More stimulus feels good, but causes more inflation. Keeping rates low feels good, but creates bigger bubbles. Currency controls feel protective, but destroy confidence. This is why you can't count on the government to save you. Even well-intentioned actions can have terrible consequences when you're dealing with problems this large. So here's the bottom line. Trump cannot stop the 2026 crash. No president can. The crash is the result of 50 years of accumulated bad decisions, mathematical inevitabilities, and structural problems that are beyond any individual's power to fix. The debt is too large, the demographics are locked in, the de-dollarization is in motion, the commercial real estate collapse is happening, the money printing must continue, the derivatives market is primed to explode, the trust is broken, and the political system is incapable of making the hard choices that would be needed to change course. Trump will try. I believe that. Nah. He'll push for policies he thinks will help. He'll make deals. He'll use executive power. He'll do everything within his authority, but it won't be enough. The forces driving us toward crisis are too powerful, too entrenched, too far along. The momentum is unstoppable. This isn't about Trump being weak or incompetent. This isn't about him not caring or not trying. This is about the limits of presidential power when facing a mathematical and economic reality that transcends politics. If you're counting on Trump to save the economy, you're going to be disappointed. If you're counting on any president, any party, any government action to prevent the crisis, you're going to be disappointed. The only person who can save you is you. The only protection you have is your own preparation. The only security you can count on is what you build yourself. So stop waiting, stop hoping, stop believing that someone else will fix this. They won't, they can't. The crash is coming, and you need to be ready. Duh. If this video opened your eyes to the reality that Trump can't stop what's coming, share it. Your family needs to understand this. Your friends need to stop counting on political solutions. Help spread this message. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'm going to continue covering the crisis as it unfolds, the actions Trump takes, and strategies for surviving what's coming. This is the most important story of our time. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Do you believe Trump can fix things, or do you see that the problems are too big? Do you understand that this transcends politics?